Hello, my name is Apollo, and welcome to Pantheon Talks. As beginner artists, a huge concern for a lot of us when creating our comic is determining what art style we should make our story in. Should it be detailed or simple? Should we do flat colors only or a lot of shading and highlights? If that is something you are trying to determine, then this is the video for you. A small disclaimer, none of us are professionals in any field, therefore all of our statements are personal opinions, so please take them with a grain of salt. Alright, let's dive in. Now, most of this discussion will more so be directed towards beginners or those who are just starting their Webtoon for the first time. Now, unfortunately, there isn't a simple answer to this question. Depending on your circumstances and where you are in your art journey, the answer could be yes or it could be no. Some of you may be wondering why art style is even important. You might be thinking, isn't the story the most important aspect of what I'm creating? And to that, I want to ask you, are you creating a novel? Art and writing are a balancing act when making a comic. The writing enhances the artwork and the drawings enhance the writing. As creators, we're juggling multiple objectives at once as we create these stories. And I want to be completely transparent with you all. Our art is our reader's first impression of the story. Often, people tend to select webtoons with eye-catching artwork, not amazing summaries. In novels, they rely on eye-catching covers to pique more interest than just a plain or generic book cover. However, if we're just beginning our journey, then we wouldn't necessarily focus on a unique art style right now. Making sure the scenes are clear, that it flows easily, that we're giving the best quality might be the most important aspect for us to focus on instead of making the style unique. For a lot of us, we're still developing our art style, so a focus should not be placed on the aesthetics just yet. Our primary focus should be learning basic art skills that we need to eliminate any sort of visual confusion. But that doesn't mean you can't develop your art style as you go along. And the more we create, the better we'll get. Even deciding something as simple as whether to do flat coloring or cel shading can be considered your current art style. When creating a comic, a huge part of our style is determined by time. Depending on our comic's scheduled release date, so weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever you decide it to be, we can determine what we can complete in that amount of time. The art style depends on how much we can finish within the allotted time that we've given ourselves to reach the deadline. Things that we definitely are capable of doing, we may not be able to get done within the time frame we've given ourselves. So sacrificing certain details that are usually in our normal style may have to be done. However, don't sacrifice so much that it causes you to dislike your art. Our enjoyment in the process is important, and keep in mind the more we do, the faster we'll get, and those details we may have wanted to add in the beginning, we could add them later. See, improvement should be inevitable when making a comic. For example, if you're struggling with wonky hands when you first start, well, after drawing them 500 times, you should definitely have improved somewhat and possibly gotten even more efficient. And now that extra time you used to use to draw hands can be applied to something else, like maybe adding lighting effects or speed lines. Focus on the things that will make you, the creator, happy. We need to determine what we can't live without when we're making our story. Maybe it's the way we draw eyes, the way we style hair, the coloring, or something else. Whatever it may be, don't worry, we will figure it out. Our art style will be constantly growing, so don't get weighed down in such an ambiguous concept. There is a difference between a consistent art style and improvement in our art. As mentioned before, as artists, we're going to be constantly working on art, which means we're bound to improve. and that's completely fine. In fact, readers will recognize that and applaud creators more in those instances. However, going from a Studio Ghibli style to something like a Bob's Burgers style can be very confusing for the readers. And it won't only confuse them, but it'll break the immersion of the story and could ultimately cause them to drop the story entirely. Look back at the Webtoons art styles that inspired you to begin making a webtoon in the first place. What was the story that really fueled your passion to say, this is what I want to do? You probably still admire that series to this day. We likely want to make a webtoon because we've fallen in love with the medium. So don't stress about the art style. It'll come over time. Let's get a little more advanced and dive deeper into this topic. Why do you want your art style to even be recognized? To me, this is one of the key reasons to have an art style. Instant recognition creates fan support. Creating an art style that readers easily recognize is not only helpful to our readers, but it does several things for us as creators. Imagine your art was shown to a crowd of people, and they knew instantly, without hesitation, who created it. So without even saying a word, our fans or our followers will instantly want to support our projects because they trust us as creators. Our art style is basically the stamp on all of our projects. With that in mind, a few questions might pop into our heads, especially if we're trying to turn this into a side hustle or a career. Number 1, how do I develop a unique art style? Number 2, what webtoon or comic art style should I pick? Number 3, should I lean towards a particular style to be successful on webtoons? Now let's take each one of these one at a time. First, developing a unique style. We've briefly talked a lot about letting the brilliant works of other artists we admire influence the look of our own work, but the biggest question is, how do we make their style ours? We don't necessarily want people to look at our work and mistake it for someone else's. Therefore, we aren't trying to clone their style. So study from multiple sources and have an abundance of influences so that you can take the best aspects from each of their styles and blend them together into a new one. Here's an example. Maybe you want to take the complexity of the Final Fantasy outfits, the silhouettes from Overwatch, and the expressions from Ouran High School Host Club. And then you combine those elements to make something brand new. Now, to start, I would recommend using only 1 or 2 resources, and as you get comfortable with those concepts, keep incorporating more. Also, it's okay not to have every aspect of your style figured out. Again, as we continue honing our abilities, we will discover new artists who capture our attention. We will add them to our Frankenstein style, slowly molding it into a hybrid of what we prefer, what our preferences are. But when will our art style finally reveal itself? So it's going to take time, practice, and patience. We'll start to see it take shape through hours and hours and hours of refinement, and eventually it'll develop on a subconscious level. The more we create, that abstract concept will begin to take shape. Confidence will start to form, and it'll become something that we don't even think about. Always look for ways to improve, and even consider this: professionals are constantly improving. And if we keep pushing ourselves, our style will eventually emerge. Number 2, what webtoon or comic art style should I pick? Okay, so no one can tell you what style to start pursuing. If we look at history, all types of art styles have found success in the world. From Tim Burton's style to children cartoon styles to American comic book styles to anime styles, manga styles, just to name a few. Even on Webtoon Originals, there are a few series that specifically stand out as different. Here are a few examples. Code Helix. Everything is Fine. Eyes. I kind of want to hone in on one series in particular here though. eyes. It really stood out to me because it's basically a black and white comic. So even a more traditional style comic could be picked up by Webtoons. So I can't speak for Webtoons, but I will say they are willing to greenlight some series that don't fit into the conventional anime, manga, manhwa box. So go with the style that inspired you to begin making comics in the first place. It's as simple as that. Pick a style that makes you happy. This will have the ultimate benefit for both you and the audience. And again, I'm not telling you to copy, but as we explain, take inspiration from other creators' works. What is it about their style that you love? Is it the uniquely designed characters, the way they color, the emotions they convey, or is it something else? This is just a jumping off point. You will have to figure out how to incorporate those elements into your current style. So how you go about creating your Frankenstein style is completely your business and no one else's. Number 3. Should I lean towards a particular style to be successful on Webtoons? So all of these are a little similar, but they each have different talking points. Now that you've picked an art style or you're beginning to develop a style, you may start to wonder, did I pick the right style though? A thing to remember is Webtoons is a company, and a company's ultimate goal is to make money. They're not a charity. And there is no simple way to answer this question. However, I do think determining success ultimately depends on our goals for creating our comic. Are we satisfied on Webtoon Canvas, possibly receiving support through other means of success like Patreon, PayPal, or Ko-fi? Also, if you don't have something like that set up, I really recommend it. And so if that's the case, I say do whatever you want when it comes to your art style. Don't limit yourself. Embrace whatever you want to do, and if you're extended an offer down the line, great. However, for you, your success is not contingent on a contract. Now, if you want to be a Webtoon original, again, I can't speak for Webtoons, but if you observe the original creators, there is a certain quality threshold we need to meet in order to be an original creator. Adapting our art style may make our series more appealing to readers and possibly to Webtoons. However, even if we meet that threshold or adapt our style to fit more with the Webtoon original aesthetics, it doesn't guarantee us a contract. For this, I recommend being flexible with your art style. If an original contract is something you want, you may have to meet Webtoons in the middle and adapt it to fit their company. But this is to a reasonable degree, of course. Art style is a difficult issue to deal with, especially when we are just starting out. But stay positive. Don't make such a big deal about this. Listen, I know you've got this. Now, this may not have answered all of your questions about art style. However, I hope it does give you a place to start and some tips on how to move forward. A lot of things mentioned in this video probably could be their own video topics. So if there was something specific you would like us to elaborate on, then please leave a comment below. As a reminder, be sure to check out the links in the description below. Next week, we will discuss, is my Webtoon idea good? If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, leave us a like, a comment, and most definitely ring the bell. Be sure to follow us on all our social media accounts, link in the description. We are particularly active on Instagram, so if you want to chat with us, feel free to pop on by. All right, we'll catch you in the next video.